again. Those of you who have seen me moderating the earlier panels will actually find some change today. Just for your information, this is going to be a televised show, so I have had to sit in the center and therefore moderate. So, which I'm not used to it, so if you see me a little fidgety, it is because of the change of this whole plan and program. But I must tell you that this panel is probably one of the most diverse panels that I have handled in the last so many years of moderating various sessions. I have Mr. Vijay, investment banker, investor, person who understands finance, and somebody who's involved with the government who understands everything that's happening on the ground realities, so close to the ground. Very rarely do we get this kind of a combination with us. And we have Mr. Vilas, who has actually taken farm into consumers. So we have been talking of farm to folk, but we never had an opportunity to bring farm to this folk, which is actually all the consumers here. Ram, a global professional who has managed retail business around the world, around the globe, as well as in India, part of the Landmark Group. And of course, Kishore, a friend, a competitor, a founder of RAI, co-founder, founder of the Future Group, and of course, everybody calls him the maverick retailer, somebody who actually is. So I have a fantastic panel across. I want to start this whole discussion, Kishore, with you. For some reason, you are able to catch up the consumer's mood before anything happens in this country. And for some reason, you're also able to collaborate with, as a first mover, whether it was Amazon, when they came in, you were the first probably partner in some way to them. When Paytm came in as a group, you actually caught them on. And whether it was a Big Bazaar Direct or a Big Bazaar or what you're doing today in terms of future consumer, you're ahead of the curve. How do you get the pulse of the consumer, and how do you find out a partner, and how does this collaboration in this world actually work for you?
I don't know, but to be very honest, why do you ask me the first question? That is a problem. I think it's all about keeping your eyes and ears open and remaining young always. And I believe it's an exercise by itself. How do you remain young, relevant, and how we are in tune with what's happening around you. So having a multidisciplinary interest in various aspects of things or life, I think that makes you relevant, and secondly, being an entrepreneur makes you experiment with multiple things. I think with making so many mistakes all this period of last 25 years, we have the wisdom now what not to do and whom do you work with. Secondly, I think it's a journey, and in our journey we have to accept realities and destroy a lot of things and build new things. So we believe we are reborn every 3 years, and one has to relook at each and everything, because the world is changing much, much faster than what the whole idea of the modern corporation earlier was, to bring in stability and to reduce variables and to believe in homogeneity. I think the new world is all about diversity, new techniques, new technologies, and consumers also evolving much faster than the corporations are evolving. So I think it's our job to keep pace with them.
I love this. Do you have a count of number of successes versus number of failures?
I think without failures you can't get successes. So failure is a part of success journey. So I think as many successes, as many failures.
And how do you keep young?
That's a secret.
Well, I know he won't say it in public, but those of you who have access to him during lunch or tea break, please just check that up. He may have a somewhere in his pocket, and maybe you will get a top of it. Yeah, but that's your luck. Well, let me come to Vijay. I mean, if you look at the country and the government and our Prime Minister, okay, from Man Ki Baat to whatever, he is connecting to the young. What has happened in the world, and especially in India in the last 2 years, in terms of not only digitization as a talk word, but digitization on the ground. I mean, we'll see the results. What do you think is the elixir of this energy that has come in terms of digitization? And if you see from your lens, you have seen finance, you have seen consumer, you have seen politics and the government. Where will this take us?
Well, I think since you started as our Prime Minister, I always wonder how he has so much energy and how much he's a great connected guy. I can tell you, we all use the word connected, but of course compared to Manmohan Singh, he's very connected, but even otherwise, he's an extremely connected person. One always, marvels at his breadth of connectivity from the top to the bottom. I think we have to recognize we are in a disruptive age. And if you look at a larger context, and I think retail is not only India's biggest industry, it's India's oldest industry. I think the Bhagavad Gita refers only to retail. Among all the farming it refers to, but retail, you are the guys who bring the producer with the consumer in many ways. I think there is a lot of disruption going on in the industry. Narendra Modi was a great disruptor on November 8th when he changed the way Indian consumers will have to pay.
You ask us, all retailers, we will, if you want to do, I can do a 1 hour session. What happened on November 8th?
I've had enough sessions with people who have got disrupted in the process. Patanjali is a great disruptor. So in this context, I think the government has a very difficult role to perform. And another thing, Nagesh, we must remember, where this government is coming from, as far as I can see, and I've been associated with this party for more than 20 years, that we really believe the business of government is not business. We are very reluctant entrants into any business. The core of our thinking is, business knows what it's best. We are sometimes pulled into getting into things. Unlike the Congress, which had a left liberal attitude from Nehru's time, which felt it had to be interventionist, we had to be facilitators. And we often say the two industries that grew best in India were cable television and information technology, because the government didn't even know they were growing. The minute government started interfering, there was a problem. So the issue here is, I think government's job here is to have digitalized India, provide broadband, provide an environment where real estate is available at a reasonable price to retailers. If you look at a typical retailer, what are the issues on the ground he faces? He faces high cost of retail space.
Vijay, I'll come back to you, because when you said government is not in business and is a facilitator, I want to come back to you after I've spoken to these gentlemen on the platform that government has to create.
Yeah, I just want to say that the government, I believe, in a philosophical level, should just step back and let the animal spirits, and only when there's a lack of fair level playing fields of fair play or a monopoly getting created, we should step in. That's, I feel, the way the party also thinks broadly. But in between, we can't just take a laissez-faire attitude. We have to enter. Please carry on.
Yeah. So tell me, Vilas, how did you really think of moving from your personal 1 or 1.5 acre or few acres of farm to this whole movement where you're talking of bringing 3,000 farmers and thousands of acres and actually talking to the consumers directly? Because your dream and vision of connecting the farm to the folk and the consumer, and probably you have done in a small way in reality, where did it start from? And don't forget, you're also talking of connecting to the connected consumer. This is almost a dream for any fruits and vegetables retailer.
Basically, what I understand with my own experience as a farmer for the last 15 years, why we are in problem as a farmer, we all know that more than 99% farmers, whatever the crop we are growing, in most of the crops, we have the issue that is not feasible to the farmer, whether it is from irrigated area, from the Punjab, or whether it is from the drought-prone area like Maharashtra. This is happening because of the lot of challenges, but the main problem which we are facing, our land holding pattern. I think more than 80% our farmers are having just 4-acre land. And on this small scale, if they are doing farming and they are competing with the global competition, how they are going to survive?
So in a true sense, you are doing collaborative farming.
Yeah. And also another end, whatever the situation, whether it is a good climate, good monsoon, or whether it is a market condition, in all circumstances, farmer is always a loser. And that is happening because...
Maybe you can just hold the mic in your hand and just give it to him, don't fix it up. It'll take great time, please. हाथ में दे दो यार, उसको रहने दो.
Okay, it's okay.
Yeah, that's fine, yeah.
This is happening because of our marketing structure. When any produce coming from the farmer and it is reaching to the consumer, there are so many layers. We already know what are the factors happening in the wholesale market, traditional marketing system. So we all know that whatever the consumer is paying, out of that, how the maximum return is going to the farmer. On that basis, our sustainability depend. With that view, we are trying to create the scale and the strength, how we can make the strength and how we can make it possible to reach directly to the consumer. Through that, I think Sahyadri model is created and we are moving on that line to create the value for our all farmers, whatever the crop they are growing, whatever the scale, whatever the circumstances. In all that circumstances, farming should become a profitable venture. Then real change will come in the market. As a consumer, when we are talking, mainly we are talking about the urban people. Nobody is thinking, I think, about the rural population, who is still 60% total population. Farmer on one side is a supplier, but also on one side is a consumer. If we start focusing on this way, definitely, I think real change will happen.
So can you just give us a few numbers? I mean, how many farmers are now connected with you?
Currently, we have 6,000 farmers in our association.
6,000 farmers.
Yeah.
And how many rural consumers to how many urban consumers have you actually connected?
At present, 99% our revenue is coming from the export market. In domestic market, we have just started in last 1 year. So in rural market, we have more than 6,000 these families as a consumer and also as our part of our organization. But in urban, we are just new people.
So let me ask a question because this is important for our future discussion. Why is it that when you got the farmers together, why did you go to export first and not to India? Was the opportunity not there or was the policies not allowing you to do that? You collaborated at the farm level, but you found the real folks in somewhere outside this country.
That's a very good question, and this question always came in our mind. If we can sell 200 metric ton grapes per day in the European market, why we cannot sell 2 tons grapes in domestic market through retail chain? It should be possible because there is a market, there is a huge market in India itself. Why we should look in different markets? But it is not happening because there are a lot of challenges in this complete supply chain. Some challenges at front end, also at some challenges at logistic level, also at back end. Farmers are still, they don't have the understanding that consumer, who is the consumer, whether it is a European consumer or Indian consumer, they need the same quality, they need the same specification. If I am growing grapes for European market with their specification, with considering all food safety standards, why should not, I think, for the domestic market also in same way? Because my consumer in India also wants the same quality, he also is aspiration to get better quality, better food safe product, healthy product, and also affordable product. But how to make it possible? It is a real challenge, which is not possible for a small grower. And also at front end, the people are not focusing on this aspect. What I observe, the European retailers, they think from both ends, from the consumer angle and also from the farmer angle or from the supplier's angle. Both chains should get the value. Then only, I think, it will be sustainable.
Let me check with Ram. Ram, very interesting. The whole world wants to come to India. 1.2 billion population multiplied by a few $100s. I mean, every corporation can become a $1 billion corporation. But the reality is what he's seeing. I mean, the Indian consumer, although he's connected, maybe he spends 25% of his money on recharge or to be connected rather than on spending on consumption. You have seen the global market, you have seen the Indian market. In fact, you have been involved with the Indian market for the 15, 20 years. How are you seeing the connected consumer?
I must say that there is a certain value proposition that the customers always drives in India, much more than what we see sometime outside of India. The value proposition is very, very important for all retailers to be able to service the customer. And especially when they are a connected customer, they have the opportunity to research a lot more, they are more knowledgeable, and they are also driving a lot of instant gratification. So which means they see something, and if they see value in it, they immediately convert. And if they don't see value in it, they just drop out. And to get them back into the buying mood or to look at a brand and engage with a brand gets a lot more difficult. Having said that, I'm saying that there is more and more I sort of read a lot of things happening in India as well as experience it. there is a certain set of customers who are willing to pay the price for our premium products, to have a better experience, to enjoy better food products or merchandise. So I think it is changing, but at the same time, the percentage of population which is able to afford it and which is able to go out and consume in certain volumes and create a certain market share for those type of product categories which are slightly more aspirational, slightly more premium, is still very, very limited in the country. It's still, the market seem to be more at the broad, the mid levels and slightly more upper mid levels. And the bottom portion of the population is still not come into the consumption stage. Unless we see the change that's happening at the bottommost level, which starts to consume, and then the mid level is able to move up and then afford a better product, better quality product, better premium product, we will not see the average values moving up in the country. That's the biggest challenge in the country. It's not due to competition because the volume is still there, so we can drive the prices down. I mean, all of us know that when it comes to fashion or when it comes to even food categories, I think the prices are the best in the US compared to even Europe. And that's happening because of the volume that they are able to drive in the market and the amount of consumption that's happening in that market. So same thing in India, like as the consumption starts growing and as more and more people coming to the consumption fold, I'm sure that we will be able to offer a better value, better product, and still offer them products at different segments, the premium to the mid to the lower mid.
But do you believe of this connected consumer? Are you seeing the difference of an unconnected consumer like you and me 20 years back to a current connected consumer?
Yeah, I think everybody is changing. I mean, even the 20 years back, customers who are not connected have to be connected today. Otherwise, they would lose out in this market to some extent because they will not have the knowledge. They will not have the ability to understand the amount of information and the width of merchant. The varieties of become like tenfold, and there are so many other brands which are coming to the market every day. So you need to be abreast of what's happening as a consumer, and that's happening more and more with the way that we are all connected today.
Wow. Kishore, you have 20,000 crore group, 100,000 crore by 2020, from vegetables, fruits to electronics, and now the future consumer, which is your FMCG business. Where do you see the Indian consumer? Has this connection made a difference to the consumer in terms of consumption?
I think consumption depends on the income which a person has. And I think our GDP per capita is still 1800. And we believe as the GDP per capita rises, the consumption will keep on changing in this country. But if you look at the top 2% of the population of India, they would consume as anybody else in terms of globally. So up to 10% of India, I think there is a discretionary consumption which is happening. Then you look at the balance 40% of India, they are basically living on very 300 to 400 SKUs of consumption. And you go below that, I think it's limited to 100 SKUs. I think for India to consume more, the per capita, the GDP size has to become much, much larger. And I think that's a much larger task for us, to create jobs, to create manufacturing, to create services, to create a lot of activities, economic activities which can get many people into the consumption fold. So India is happening at various levels. And we are all learning while doing. The time we started business to today, I think a lot of things have changed. And look at our refrigerators have become double door, people having 2 refrigerators at home. The consumption on the food side is changing in I think the fastest.
But on the top 5%, top 10%.
I think 10%.
Yeah, top 10%.
But 10% is not small, it's 120 million people. So I believe things are changing quite fast because India being a younger country, the aspiration levels are rising much faster. And people are willing to experiment and consume a lot of new categories and new products.
But Vijay, when we look at the whole per capita, let's say it's $1870 or whatever, and we are saying top 10%. In top 10%, not a lot of jobs are getting created. In fact, one of the statistics said that almost there was 1 million job and last year was only about 200,000 jobs created. Any increase in the per capita, the first impact is going to be at the bottom. If even it goes by $200 or $300 with all the government initiative, it's not going to come into the big consumption basket of all the so-called FMCGs of the world. So is there something that we are seeing as very contrary to what we think? I mean, $200 per capita increase, will it impact consumption on the top end or at the farmer's end? And how do you see consumption then happening?
Nagesh, actually, what he's saying is right, and I think Mr. Biyani had a very fundamental issue. To improve consumption in India, we need to increase the per capita income, amount of money. But you know, there are certain economic trends or events which no government can change. We think we can change. For example, urbanization, industrialization. I remember Buddhadev Bhattacharya said in a seminar, and I appreciated him for that, he said, urbanization, industrialization are facts of life. Please don't try to think that any government, national or state can change it. When that acceptance comes, and I think what we have seen in India, unfortunately from 1991, is some amount of investment and employment and consumption being out of sync. There's a new normal. And that's where people like us who advise the government, telling the government, please focus on those aspects of the economy which would create employment fast. If you see the whole approach of this government, of course, leave alone areas like farmer community and all, which are in a, alleviation of poverty will remain the number one priority of every government. We need to go towards a welfare state. So there is no politics or anything about it. But one level below, Skill India campaign, Digital India campaign, etc., I believe, because we do recognize that manufacturing sector can put up huge mega power plants, petrochemical plants, but they can't create the type of jobs. For example, if you had, internet penetration, mobile, service sector, retailing. I was thinking, my wife and I were chatting last night at a restaurant we had been, about 8 different people helped in serving us the food. 8 people who were getting jobs, just like when we had some dal roti. You just imagine, and you go to a Reliance Patal Ganga plant or something, we don't see any people at all.
Can I give you some statistics and
pick
you up from there?
Yeah.
India has 12 million retailers as per government record. We know that 8 million retailers are reached by the FMCGs, the livers and the ITCs. 43 million people in India work. The family size of these 43 million is 4.6, which is 200 plus million Indians are involved in the retail business. I'm saying directly as a family. This is the kind of numbers that we have.
Nagesh, the biggest problem with your industry, nobody thinks you're an industry.
Oh, you actually caught on. We can actually change the topic. Let's discuss what we can do as an industry to this.
Nobody thinks of you as a cohesive set of people with the same common issues. You see, aajkal the steel industry comes and meets us. And China said dumping or this, that. Then cement industry meets us. But when retail industry comes, it is Delhi Shopkeepers Association with their problems, somebody offline people, online people. So I think you'll become very, very powerful if you behave like an industry.
No. The problem is not that. The problem is when we go as an industry, we go to Nirmala ji and she says, I am commerce. Okay, I can look at this. Then we go to the consumer industry. And then we go to the finance.
She's going to avoid difficult situations, right? Because she's a minister. But you need to, I think you are a bit like Kumbhakarna. You don't know your power. And I think you should get your act together. And many things like cheap capital, cheap real estate, making banks lend more to SMEs, all that's not difficult to do. But I feel that you should really...
Sure, this is too much. Huh? We are like a Kumbhakarna, we are not waking up. Yeah, we need to be shaken up in this. No, I think
let me shake up the whole industry today. Just to tell you a fact, that if the digital economy comes in for a retailer, a shopkeeper earns 7% gross margin on the FMCG product which they sell, and the cost of digital transaction is 1.6%.
Yeah.
So, will the government shake up?
Somewhere on the other hand, thanks for your saying that, somewhere someone told me, why is government entering payment system? You want to be everywhere. You know, in your mail you had talked about Beam and this, that. Why don't you leave it to us? I said, listen, everywhere I hear the cost of electronic transfer of funds is very high. Somebody came and said, still banks are charging for debit card usage.
Yes.
You know, I said, these are real issues. And how do we break it? If we enter too much, then people will say, government is interfering everywhere in the costing of business. Is it the role of government to price products? Tomorrow you will come and say, Landmark should not sell more than 600 rupees per dress or something. So where do you draw the line when it comes to government? I think one's very sort of free market solution is create so much capacity, create so much competition that the price
but
will...
last 2-day headlines were stents prices have been kept, and the minimum support price for tur or the dal has been controlled, which has created a lot of anomalies in the market.
But you know, this dal crisis, I think we took very good steps. We increased the acreage. Today we have built up a huge buffer stock.
No, there is a huge supply now.
Yeah.
And,
And I'd rather have huge supply than huge demand.
But then
huge
minimum,
supply, he has a problem.
But then there's a
Huge
minimum
rate.
support price.
Why
Sir.
don't we get a commitment from you today that you will wake us up, take us to the government and create, an umbrella, right? That we all can work with you to be able to...
I'd like to see the day when biggies like you, Amazon and Flipkart, go and bang on the doors of the government and say, we want this.
But Amazon and Flipkart are not retailers, as this claim. So,
No, Vijay, I think what we're trying to say is that I agree that the governments have to create platform, and this government through digitization and all this connectivity is actually creating a platform.
We are an enabler. We are an
Yeah,
enabler.
but I'm saying that it's an enabling digital platform which is getting created. Leave the enabling policies for all the retailers to play in the market as a free market. Exactly what you said, and I think that's important. When we are saying of digitized consumer, connected consumer, and we are saying collaborative effort, the collaboration at the retail level and the government level, somewhere we are missing things
Listen,
because of
why
policy.
don't you call the telecom biggies and ask them to give broadband cheaper, yeah?
I think the return on capital employed for a telecom is less than 7% now.
Then
I don't think so they can afford it.
what's the solution?
The solution is to make the cost of economy at a very low cost.
No, I think
Our cost of doing business has
the
gone
solution,
up unbelievably high.
to me the solution is
prices
very
can't
clear.
come down.
Allow everybody to access capital and access consumers in the same way. That's all. Don't create an economy where you are actually saying capital you can access, you can't access. As Indians, you can't access capital in this country. As Indian retailer, you can't access capital. As Indian managed company, you can't even access capital up to 49%. But anyhow, the idea is not to use this as a platform.
No. We are talking about a connected. All these are related issues. You, in a summit like this, I think you should talk about the issues of the industry as a whole. Getting finance at a reasonable cost, getting digital at a reasonable cost. These are very big issues.
Cost of doing business.
Cost of doing business is a very big thing.
Also, if you have 200 million Indians involved with the business, okay, if Indian retail is a 600 billion going to $1 trillion, it's a hell of a lot of component of the whole country's economy. I mean, today Singapore has a minister of retail.
You know the mindset in this country. We abolished the planning commission. A few years ago, if you went and said urban office conglomerates are also infrastructure, they won't believe you. They'll think a nice office where a retail mall is there, it is a luxurious waste in this country.
Absolutely.
You know, it takes a lot of mindset change in the political system to believe that a mall is doing as much service to the country as any other part of the economy. You know, a lot of mindset changing your industry has to do.
I think that's where the point of Vijay has to be taken very well, that we have to change the mindset of the political and lawmakers.
Yeah, I think that's as an industry we have to get together and ensure. I mean, this is something that others have also
in
told
one of
us.
the sessions like this, somebody
like
from
we
the
supply.
somebody from the Niti Aayog commented that the retail stores, the physical stores will be extinct by 2021.
Oh my God.
No. I had some solace. I was sitting in the audience, Vijay. I had some solace because he said all retailers, all bankers sitting in this hall, please note that you have no future after 2021. So I had at least a solace that the banking system also will become digital.
This is not happening.
Yeah, this is not happening at all.
Anywhere in the world.
I think we are underestimating the entrepreneurial capability of this country. And we are underestimating the 12 million retailers who are sitting there and who are even today moving 90% of goods and services.
You're growing at 24% per year, yeah.
Yes.
For last 15 years.
Absolutely.
Without any government support.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
Which industry is doing like that?
It's
No,
then
this
it's
is what...
Then it's better sleeping or being awake.
No, there's one more thing, you know. That was a good question. As a sleeping giant, we are going at 24%. If you awaken us, what will happen? Yeah, I think our challenge has been that when we were sleeping, we also got ignored. I think that's where the issue is. And suddenly this new age boys, the so-called digital wave, the online wave actually came in and probably became the new young boy.
I think, Nagesh, I can sum it up in a very different way. For the government, I think we bypassed the electronic typewriter from an ordinary typewriter straight to a computer. The government for a small store, it straight away went to Amazon and Flipkart. We were bypassed totally here.
We were bypassed, so we have to get up and come all across there. No, Ram, I think you have seen this happening. You were just talking about how Saudi is changing laws, okay, to bring in youngsters, bring in their own people. You know, when this whole change happens because of governments, okay, how are retailers actually adopting? And especially how are the young consumers, so let's say Saudi adopting. And if you look at that, and this, of course, there's no comparison in terms of size and scale, but I want you to touch on the government, consumers working together to grow the country's economy.
I think if the government were to recognize that retail is one of the key industries in the country, and it can employ a lot of people at the high school levels and slightly, at the graduate levels.
Women in retail. I mean,
women in retail is a big opportunity. And once that recognition comes in, there's a lot of things that the government and the industry can do together. And it's happening in a big way that, today since Nagesh touched upon Saudi Arabia, I just wanted to say that this is a country where the women were not allowed to work, till recently, till about 5 years back. And then when the government intervened and said, we need to now bring the women into the mainstream of employment, the mainstream of the society, the industry that they look for is the retail industry. It started with banking, and then it went on to the retail industry, and they created an environment which is conducive for the women to go and work. We have done a lot with women employment in the back office, in the IT industry. There's a lot that we can do when it comes to the retail industry to bring a lot of women into the workforce. Similarly, I think, all this is happening through very clear government interventions in a way that the government is encouraging the retail industries to employ the women and also creating, because they are a traditional society, so they are making changes in the way that the work environment is conducive for the women to come out and work there. So all this means that there is a way to there's a way to work together in a collaborative manner when it is recognized as a key industry in the country. And that's where I think that the first step has to be taken. In terms of employment at the, we know that 80% of the people who work in retail are all below 30 years of age, or let's say 25 to 30 years of age, and even younger. So if you want to create more and more employment at that level, there has to be intervention on the cost of operations of the retail industry. For us to open, maybe 20% more space or 30% more space, the cost has to come down, and it can generate employment in the country, and it can lead to more consumption because it's conveniently available to the consumer, and of course the average income has to go up, that we cannot sort of bypass. That's a very important part of the economy where the average per capita income has to go up, but it's a vicious cycle because as you employ more and more people, they also have more income in their hands.
Let me pick up this. There's some important statistics. I was involved with some research with the Kiranas. Okay, out of this 8 million so-called Kiranas, there are about 250,000 or 300 Kiranas in the country who are on the verge of modernizing. So when you say modernizing, it's a 500 square feet becomes 1,000 square feet. Being served from behind the counter becomes an open counter, uses a register and receives materials and also sells using the technology. In the first year, we saw business growing by 35 to 40%. From a 3-man, 1+2, it's become a 6-man. Now, this is not a future group or a shop stop or a lifestyle creating jobs. Just imagine 250. Now, what was the basic problem with this guy? Because retail is not an industry, therefore, banking system, there is no preference to it because it's not industry. It is not even part of that. And so there's no capital which is allowed. And the second is that he's not able to implement technology because he doesn't have the fund. So if there was one movement to say, guys, can we actually modernize 250,000 out of 8 million kiranas, you are talking of 1 million jobs being created. This is absolutely grassroots level. So I think there are huge opportunities. But
you know what you should do? You should call AIBA, Bankers Association, have a total workshop with them, change the mindset that NBFCs are doing this too, that financing a trader
yes,
is a bad thing. You know, in fact, as an aside, in the political system for a long time, our party was called Party of Traders. I was quite proud of
even
it.
today we
I
believe.
said, I've been in the stock market and I believe a broker is a trader. So, you know, I don't think, but generally the feeling is that guy in a manufacturing who's got a polluting chimney at the top and all that thing is a greater contributor to society. So I think this delivery of credit should to SMEs, to traders without collateral is something, the Mudra scheme is there to back them up and all that. It's very important. And you should do that at the industry level, I feel, because the Kirana fellow, poor chap.
He doesn't have
But Nagesh, to take his side, I think the government has already have a scheme on entrepreneurship up to 10 lakh rupees without collateral. The government has already announced it for retailers.
Yeah, so basically the question is if these retailers take
Banks don't see this because they don't realize 90% of their NPAs are coming from chaps whose NPA is more than 500 crores. Whereas the hit is being felt by people who are going without collateral.
Kishore is right. My only thought was that we had a move of Make in India, Digital India, Swachh Bharat. To me, if this segment is actually
But
taken
there is
up,
already a scheme of 10 lakhs.
so I'm saying if you can actually take on and say consume India, somewhere it is not in the forefront. And don't forget, we are an association of 1,000 people out of the so many millions. So somewhere
We have so many Navratras, consume India, people will be after us. Why are you forcing us to consume? You are a fascist.
okay, so let me pick up and move slightly towards the whole collaboration, Vijay. I mean, how do you really see the whole collaboration happening? Now, we talked about the beam and all that, and now today we are talking of the new QR code for the retail system. And we are also talking of some way collaboration between that. When you see from outside, do you see collaboration between the technology, the digital India, the online India, the offline India, and the brick and mortars? And if you had to suggest one or two things which can make collaboration good from a consumer's point of view, how do you see that?
I feel, Nagesh, collaboration is something that comes from within. You don't decide, okay, collaboration is good, but you know, as you were saying in your, when you shut your shop down at 10, you realize the market is going on. So what do? Tomorrow you get an online presence. You call a developer and say, develop an online presence, or tie up with an online presence. So I think most of this collaboration, not between government and industry, but within different players, get onto a mobile wallet. These would be individual retail decisions. And I think they would happen in the very normal course of things. The only thing government can do through its intervention is to ensure that the cost of doing that is minimal or next to nothing. Because you can't say digital India, smart India, if your office space is so expensive, your broadband is so expensive, and that sort of thing. Then you're not competitive.
Yeah, let me come back to you, Vilas. I mean, what is your view from the farm side as to what is this whole collaboration that can be done? Where can we move towards India consuming Indian farm produce at the urban? Let's not even talk of the farmers level.
What I understand, retail business, definitely they have to view from consumer's angle. So they want to give maximum benefit to their consumer. So from that angle, they are taking decisions. In most of the crops, I will just take one example of apple. Whatever the apple we are consuming in the country, almost 80% is imported. We are consuming the apple of Californian farmer, New Zealand farmer, Chilean farmer, or Chinese farmer. But we are not supporting to our farmer, our apple farmers. Apple farmer, I think our industry is more than Californian industry. But still it is struggling from different angles, whether it is at infrastructure level. Sir, I visited apple farmers in last August during the apple season. Whatever the apple we have grown, actually apple should be stored in CS store, but the most of the CS stores are in Chandigarh. very few stores. I think only Adani and some 2-3 stores, they are having apple growers area. So that part where we should focus as a retail industry, it becomes our responsibility to support our farmers with complete infrastructure and to create the value for our farmer along with our consumer. Then definitely both ends will be
Why is the
beneficial.
Indian consumer buying 80% of the apples from foreign and not from Indian apples? Why does he make that decision?
Definitely quality is the main aspect.
Quality.
Consumer always prefer better quality.
Quality, cheaper,
that
more
is missing
efficient
at our
to get.
end. We don't have that much of research at our farm level. We don't have that type of variety.
So you
consumer
feel
needs.
not enough investment is being made
Yeah,
by the farm. Okay. And there you feel government should support that.
yeah.
Have you taken this up with...
There are many programs which the government has announced on farming side. So it's not a lack of programs. I think it's a lack of interest in how does one make it happen, because our land holdings, they're all small. All these things can happen on a larger scale. It can't happen on a smaller scale.
Rashmit Kaur is very dedicated to fruit industry. She keeps talking about it. And, somewhere in the detail it's got lost.
No, one of the things that's happening is, as much as we are wanting to promote manufacturing, I'm saying until as consumption gets promoted, manufacturing, you may manufacture. You manufacture in 3 shifts, we are selling in 1 shift. For every component of the manufacturing business in a category, there is a responsible person in the government. But when it comes to the last line, okay, there is no responsibility at any level. So honestly, it's not to crib about it, but even if you have to sit across, being the large industry, if you have to sit across, you are not able to sit across one person to take any decision. Even, for example, when we talk to the textile minister, dynamic minister sitting. When we talk to the food minister, dynamic minister sitting. But what is it that we can do? Because it's not about the manufactured product. It's about how do we take the manufactured product into the retail ecosystem and make it happen. And because today retail ecosystem is finance, commerce, food, textile, consumer affairs. So you actually don't know. If you look at Singapore, today every retailer is given a star rating because there's a minister for retail. So somebody is responsible for retailing and consumption. I think that move has come. Yes, you may say without the government it worked. Long time back somebody told me, IT industry's problem started when we had a minister for IT. Okay, but I think in this country we require a minister or retail, somebody who holds the retail portfolio. And as we go, maybe we can see how it grows. I think this is becoming very critical, even as somebody running the association. How do we reach and how do we connect with the government? It's not been an easy task for us. We have to meet 8-10 people. At the end of the day, it gets just flitted away all across. Kishore, I want to come to you to a new phenomenon. One is with 20 million Indians traveling and more actually traveling out. And today with the online commerce, excise coming down, the whole wave of changes that's happening. Today Indians are consuming global products and a lot of Indian manufacturers are looking at global consumers. Okay, so it is no more local Indian consumers. With this globalization and digitization, do you think this will be an impediment for growth of Indian retail within the Indian ecosystem?
I don't think so. I believe there is so much opportunity for us to sell abroad also and for them to sell here also. And but it's all about the various gateways which get created to facilitate it. And that's where I think India has gone back a little bit. Just to explain you a little bit. I think our cost of doing e-commerce business in India is far expensive than China. Let's take a case of China. The cost of acquiring a customer in China is less than 2%. Here it's around 20%. The cost of delivery along with returns is around 20%, and in China it's around 7%. And secondly, what's happening is all these ecosystem, which is the delivery and the customer acquisition, is not with an Indian. So all the toll gates, we are paying money to somebody which is a foreign company. So we have Indian customers, Indian products, but all the gateways are controlled by foreigners. And that's where we have lost the race in terms of China. China didn't allow anybody to come in, to have any toll gates operated by anything which is a US company or any other company.
That, and on top of it, if you look at it, and Ram, you will agree, you've been in this with Indian business for the last 20-25 years, and even online players who have come have actually are agreeing. Eventually, it's all about the top 25 cities. Whatever you say, is actually the urbanization and the consumption for most of the things that we are talking of, for any large brand, FMCG, it's all about top 20 cities, 25 cities. So every policy we are talking of is leading to some kind of consumption.
We are going to lose the plot in the cost of doing business and the cost of products. I think that's where we are going to be the biggest loser because our costs are going up significantly. Look at the history of service tax. It came into 3 items in 1995 or 1992. Today it is in every item except for a negative list, and it's around 15-16%. The collection on service tax is like a consumption tax in this country, and the amount of service tax is now exceeding customs duty. It's nearly the income tax in terms of amount of collection, 250,000 crores. It's 1% of GDP.
Hopefully with the GST, probably there could be some changes.
Are you saying that service tax is a bad thing?
I'm not saying a good thing or a bad thing. I'm nobody to say it's a good thing or a bad thing. But ultimately, service tax was in lieu of something. Because people are not paying taxes.
If the economy is 56% service
but 15%
sector,
service tax, nowhere in the world there is a service tax like this.
No, it's getting consumed in the GST now.
No, but till now, the cost of doing business for us was increasing.
No, I think in the UK, if you go to a solicitor and pay for his fees, you pay about 15% VAT or whatever they call it. There is some sort of a tax on services all over the world.
No, I'm not debating that there should be no tax, but I'm saying that over a period of time from 5% to 15%, from 3 items to virtually every item.
That's true.
Yeah.
Okay, let's.
I'm only talking about the cost of doing business and how do we compete in a global scenario in a global world, wherein we are going to compete globally on the question of what Nagesh has raised. If somebody is selling goods from China through e-commerce into India, their cost of doing business is far lower.
No, it's
how do we compete?
It's a very deep issue, you know. Yesterday I was at an international seminar conducted by External Affairs on various cross-border aspects. And time and again, people came out and said, by doing away with Mauritius and Singapore and Cyprus and allowing India getting the right to tax capital gains at resident, it's not going to affect us much because your capital gains tax are very low. But what's going to affect us is your ease of doing business. Yeah. You are a very costly economy to do business. Lot of government-related costs are there.
Absolutely.
And unless you change it, we are not so interested in coming to India.
In fact, somebody very rightly said.
Let's take an example. I have a brand. We are taking an investment in a brand, which is one of our brands in our company. Now, for that to take an investment of 250 crores, I have to go to CCI. And that CCI is going to take 60 days or 90 days for, I don't know whether the investor will survive or he'll be interested in me till that time.
There are lots of the small
you guys should really form a little bit of a pressure group, I'll suggest.
No, in fact, somebody was telling me that we actually are running on European cost, serving an Indian rupee customer. Okay, and I think that's the big challenge.
I think we are actually more expensive.
More expensive.
I'll just tell you, we have a joint venture of a personal care company, Migros from Switzerland. We are making all our goods there, which is being made at a 40% cost of what I can make in India.
Migros, Switzerland, in Swiss
we are making all our personal care products there, and it is 40% of the cost of what if you do the same product in India.
I think this is some example that maybe Kumari should start showcasing.
But it's everywhere. Every product category, we are expensive.
So this is one particular point we have to look at it. Let's move to saying, go back to collaboration, speed and scale. Can collaboration lead to speed and scale? Instead of wanting to do multiple things, is there an opportunity in India? Currently, see, lots of bullets are being fired together by the government, by every entrepreneur in this country. So suddenly the choices have become too many, but good choices are available.
I think definitely it's not possible for any retail organization to start focusing on different aspects of coming together so as to win connected consumer. So there has to be collaboration because otherwise it is not possible for you to reach the consumer with speed and scale. And also people who focus and specialize on some of those gateways or some of those vehicles through which you try and reach your customer, they build the scale because they have a scale and they have economies which they can pass it on to the different retail organizations. And all of us will come together and then to be able to reach the customer through the same vehicle. But at the same time, it's important that there has to be a certain competitive advantage that each of us has to have to be able to find the customer able to find in us. So there has to be some certain proprietary in terms of design, in terms of experience of the customer.
Any example that you have? Anything that you have something where
your navigation through the online. This is something you cannot have the same type of navigation of different brands coming together, because then you don't protect your brand experience. So there are certain aspects of the connected consumer, the way you engage with him, the way you give that experience to him. For us, navigation online is as good as walking a store and experiencing a store, right? And if you think that your design and your proprietary on that experience that you provide in the store is key to your brand, it's also key on the online. So you cannot have, I would say that, can we have the same experience listing your brand on an Amazon versus having your own proprietary experience? I would say the proprietary experience can be worked on, can be improved upon, can be really driven to the next level. But you need to invest time and you need to invest on your resources. If you don't have the resources to really build that experience, you won't be able to sort of ramp it up.
Ram, is it fair that what you're saying is that collaboration is good, but sometimes when you collaborate, you may lose your brand identity. So therefore, it's important to also work on your own experience.
Yeah.
Plus, you have some examples. I want Kishore also some examples for the audience to really pick up of saying, in collaboration, how do you multiply? How do you reach speed and scale? I have an example of my own trust, but please go ahead.
As said by sir, that cost is the major problem in India. We have experiencing our product. We are delivering grapes in Europe at the rate of around $2,500 per container. It comes around 8 to 9 rupees per kg. And when I am delivering from Nasik to the Mumbai, we are doing our transporting reefer vehicle. We are paying more than 15 rupees cost just from Nasik to Mumbai. It happens because of the scale. I am using the vehicle which is a minimum scale of around 1.5 ton carrying capacity, and if I am carrying only 200, 300 kg, so the cost is definitely going to increase. What I understand that, like in front end, we need back end also organized sector. We should have some organized.
So do you have a wish to say, yeah, I wish I could collaborate with ABC and ensure that my grapes reach the Mumbai market at the same 8, 9 rupees a kg rather than the 80 rupees a kg? Is there a wish? There's a lot of retailers sitting here. There are a lot of big entrepreneurs sitting here. I want to see possibility of a collaboration example.
Definitely there is a big opportunity. What do we understand? Instead of European market, we have better opportunities in domestic market. And definitely it is going to happen. Only whatever the challenges we are facing at logistic level or at back end, if that will be overcome.
So you are actually expecting your collaborator in terms of logistics to bring down the cost so that you can also reach. Vijay, you wanted to say something?
Yeah. Actually, I'm a great believer in collaborative effort, coming as I do from my investment banking background. I'll give you a few examples. I've been on the board of a big retail for a number of years, and I looked at the return on capital employed, and I found that they were spending too much money on go downs and logistics, and I think they were not good at it. And we had this in the audit committees, etc. We had endless discussions about it, and I made the point that the CEO, of course, says, I want to be sure that there is, time to market and all that. I said, listen, what's the return on capital employed? Remove this go down, remove this logistics, stick to your core competence, and see what's your return on capital employed. If your return on capital employed is better with this, stick to your knittings and find a way. I told them, look at the towers business. Do you think any of the mobile companies own the towers now? So it's a mindset issue among businesses that they want to vertically integrate. I think vertical integration is passé. I think more and more you have to collaborate, and your skill is to find out who is the correct person to collaborate with. Tomorrow you will say, okay, I want a mobile payment gateway. I want to start something. Is that your core competence? Why don't you get a beauty contest of 4 or 5 of them and choose the best and beat them down? So I think the way the world is moving is for core competence, and connectivity and collaboration will become the order of the day, and the winners would be those who collaborate.
Oh, Kishore, you have had some collaborations. You're still collaborating.
On a vertical basis, not a horizontal. I'm talking about vertical.
No, he has actually created vertical businesses and then collaborated and sold it off also. So he's gone vertically and horizontally.
That is more as an investor, I guess.
No, I have a little different view on this. I believe, taking Vilas's example, when we looked at, we will 5-year scenarios on whatever we do. And when we look at a scenario, we realize that the logistic cost will be the very important part of this business. And when we looked at, like Mr. Vijay was explaining, when we scouted, there was nobody who was handling logistic at that scale which we wanted to do. So we had to build our own logistic network. But we thought we don't know the business, so we partnered with somebody from Hong Kong to build that business. And we never thought we'll do this business for ourselves. But we believe we have created our capabilities. Our logistic cost today probably is far lower than anybody else in the country. I can manage 30 crore garments from one single warehouse now, which nobody else has in the world. So, and that cost will be less than 1% of sales in terms of shipping goods, in terms of fashion.
So maybe there is a opportunity for
Had
others
I
to
collaborated with somebody, it would have not happened, but I collaborated in a very different way.
You could give your logistics to third parties and make money.
We already done that.
Already done.
So I think there are various, but you cannot do everything yourself. So you'll have to partner, you'll have to collaborate, we'll have to find the best player who knows it all. Sometimes knowledge also is collaboration. When you bring in knowledge as a collaboration, I think you have to do multiple things because the entire ecosystem virtually for a modern retailer is a new ecosystem which you need to create. Whether it was technology, whether it was logistics, whether it's going to be now artificial intelligence, whether it's going to be a new way of doing business, which is a digital world, which is a connected world.
With banks having robos already being experimented with few banks in India, I don't know which retailer is going to have finally robotics and artificial intelligence. And with Amazon Go, maybe you have retailers without people inside the store.
Labor inspectors are going to be robots from now on.
Oh, labor inspectors are going to be robots from now. That's a good one.
That's a very heartening news.
That's a very, very good one. So you'll pay only as per the policies, nothing outside the policy.
I just want to add to what Vijay said. The skill is not only in finding the right collaborator, but also in identifying what you want to keep it with you and what you want to collaborate on
That's a
which
very
are the areas.
important management decision.
It's a very, very important thing.
Yeah.
What you want to keep yourself and what is it that you want to
Collaborate.
to collaborate. Okay, so if just before I go on to the audience for Q&A, I just want to go around the table and let's look at, I personally believe that the ecosystem that is getting created, let's for a moment forget about retail not getting the kind of platform it should get from the government, but overall ecosystem that's being created is actually building up speed and scale possibilities. At what cost currently I'm not. But if you had a wish to say pass to the government and say, hey, you all have done a fantastic job in terms of digitization, but if you could do this one more thing, it will make a huge difference from farm to fork. Let's look at it and say if there's a possibility we create some kind of a joint wish list out of this panel today.
I think most of the government decisions, they're always with the view that it is in the benefit of the common people, particularly in the rural people or farmer. But the final observation with any decision, whatever the decision government is taking, I think farmers are the most support people. Whether it is this note bandi or some deregulation of the market, I think all these experiments, whatever the experiments the government is doing, I think that farmers, they are the most affected people. What I understand as a government should focus on basic need of the farming community or any rural community. We don't need any subsidy, we don't need any support from the government in finance terms. Whatever the government job, whether it is a basic infrastructure like road, electricity, we need at least 24 hours of electricity, we need good roads, we need good warehouses. That is the actually basic expectation from any government. We don't need any government support in terms of the money. We don't need any support prices because anyway government is not going to protect that support prices. In pulses, what happens, last year the prices we were getting 80 rupees in market and today we are getting around 39, 40 rupees when the government support price is 50 rupees. That 50 rupees is also not protected by government. So what is the meaning of that model? Better to let's get farmers competing in the market, whatever be their profit or loss, it should be as a business. In that way, government should support.
Vijay, how would you react to this? My first time I'm hearing a farmer community saying, we don't want subsidies, we don't want supports, just leave us alone, but create infrastructure for us to do business.
Actually, it's not the first time I'm hearing. You see, it's a very genuine request because that the farming community is saying. I think the problem in India is very, very deep-rooted. The incapacity of the government to deliver its promises or assurances on infrastructure and services at that level See, Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana is a relatively better program, let's say. But some of the other programs just don't reach. Farmers don't want largesses. They don't want concessions. They want what the government is supposed to do for them. Give them electricity, give them proper roads, give open market for them. That's all they are asking. And I think this type of thinking is there among many industries. They say, okay, time has gone when we come to the government for subsidy and all that. But give us a proper environment to work. That's your job. We can demand it. We want power supply. We want power at a reasonable, we want transportation. We want railway wagons to move. We want proper roads. What's wrong with that? Why can't the people of India demand that? Absolutely. And I think farmers, for the first time, are saying that. Even when I went to some of these electoral things, meetings, etc., I find that that's the focus now. You tell them, I'll give you some interest subvention, waiver, fine, thank you. But we want this, because they want to be independent. Yeah. They want to be independent and do their own thing.
Wonderful. Ram, you have some thoughts?
I feel that if you invest on the rural areas and increase the consumption of the rural areas, I'm sure that by the time they start consuming their own produce and things like that, people in the in the urban areas will be compelled to pay a higher price for their produce, which in turn will flow to the farmers. Hopefully, the middleman is sort of eliminated in this process, right? And that will create a vicious cycle of further growth and fuel further demand for all the industrial products and the consumer products. I think the focus is to increase consumption at the base, which is the 40–50% of the people, right? And that's the way I think the economy can also grow in this country. But if we don't focus on those 50% of the people, I'm sure that our growth will start plateauing at some time, because we have not seen that shift which we all thought will happen, where people will shift from less consuming to an average consuming and then to a better consuming. That shift hasn't happened for the last 20 years.
Income is too low for that shift to take place.
Yeah, so it's not happened for last 20 years, even though we have been in a liberalized Indian economy for 20 years. It has not happened. So that should be our focus in the next 10 years. How can we make consumption at the the broadest level to start growing? And for that, what it involves and what it needs, we need to focus and spend time as a government and as an industry.
Yeah, this is probably one of the pet discussions of Kishore. We have been talking about growing consumption. Let's grow consumption, rest everything will automatically happen. But after so many years, Kishore, do you think one or two things which can really make the consumption grow?
I think
you must be knowing, because 20,000 crores to 1 lakh crore is a huge ambition.
Let me tell you, Nagesh, we are now studying a very interesting thing which we are doing in the organization. Is through data we are trying to understand the elasticity of demand at a particular price point. And just to tell you, from a 399 product garment to a 299 product, the elasticity is 5 times more.